Today we're going to talk about probably the passage of scripture that has impacted my life more than any other passage at all. Nothing. I can't think of a passage that I would say is uh, more changed the direction of my life than any other passage, and we're just going to walk through it. I think it's important. I think it's vital. I think it's ignored, and I want to talk about it because I don't think it should be ignored. I think it's important, and I think we should all be aware of it. And this is for both people in the clergy ministry kind of world and people not in that world. Here's the passage. Then Jesus spoke to the crowds and to his disciples, saying, "The scribes and Pharisees." Now note, get this. This is Jesus speaking. Okay, the rest of what we're going to read is the words of Jesus. The scribes and the Pharisees have seated themselves in the chair of Moses. Therefore, all that they tell you, do and observe, but do not do according to their deeds. Have you ever heard somebody say that before? Have you ever heard that old phrase, that saying, that thing that, it's a popular statement? It says, do what I say, don't do what I do, or do what I do, don't do what I say. Well, that's basically what Jesus is saying here about the scribes and the Pharisees. He says, do what they tell you, but don't do what they do, because they don't do what they say. For they say things and do not do them. They tie up heavy burdens and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves are unwilling to move them with so much as a finger. What? They're unwilling to so much as move a finger. They're not going to lift their finger, basically. Oh, I'll tell other people what to do, but I'm not going to lift my finger to help anybody, basically, is what Jesus is saying here. Now, is Jesus being literal? Is Jesus saying that these scribes and Pharisees, they sit still and they won't even move a finger? No, that's not what he's saying. He's speaking parabolically. He's speaking hyper, whatever those words are. He's exaggerating. You say, Josh, you can't say Jesus is exaggerating. Well, you got to understand that he is, because he says they're not willing to move a finger, and then he says, but they do. Basically, he was saying they're not willing to move a finger, they'll do anything, but then he says they do something. They do something, and all their deeds to be noticed by men. They even broaden their, I'm not even going to try to say hard word there, but they broaden their whatever these things are. But basically, it's these tassels and these strings that they have written the law of Moses on, and they lengthen them and broaden them, and they put more and more of the law of Moses on their garments and their tassels, so that you can see that they're people of the word, men of the word, such and such. I bet they if they have a church, it's called such and such Bible church, Bible, Moses law, Moses Bible law, and that's what you see today. Let's just be honest. What we live in today is a time when a lot of people have forsaken the Spirit and the relationship with God to follow and to listen to a book. And I know we're reading from that book today here, and that's what we're talking about. But this book is meant to point us to Christ, not to substitute for our relationship with Christ. And that's where we're going to get in this next part of the passage. It says they love the place of honor at banquets and the chief seats in the synagogues and respectful greetings in the marketplaces and being called rabbi by men. If you know me, you do life with me, if you attend a place to talk, if you talk about a place to talk, you know that we often get this question that we struggle to answer. They say, well, Josh, somebody will call and they'll say, can I speak to the pastor? And I'll say, we don't have a pastor. And they're like, well, what do you have? I'm like, well, we don't have anybody like that. And then somebody will introduce me and they'll say, hey, this is Josh. He's my, what do I call you? What are you? And I'm like, you're not, he's my pastor. And I say, please don't call me pastor. Sometimes I lead a conversation on Sunday mornings. It's not, I try hard to say this is not teaching, although you might learn something. It's more of the facilitation or the starting of a conversation, kind of like what I do here. with these videos. I'm talking about some scripture, and it might feel like teaching, but I don't want you to let me be your teacher. I want you to listen and read and hear this video and watch what we're talking about here, and then listen to somebody else and talk to somebody else and pray about it and let God be your teacher. Let God be your leader. But anyway, so I'm leading conversations sometimes on Sunday mornings, and so I'll show up at church on Sunday mornings to start getting the room ready and setting up the PowerPoint. And sometimes, or often, I miss breakfast. We eat breakfast together every Sunday morning. And so I'll miss breakfast, and I'm working, and I'll come back, and somebody will have made me a plate of food. And it's almost like it's a place of honor. This little plate of food, it's a spot of honor. It's something here like this. And when I get liver mush and biscuits and gravy and sausage, and it's just maybe some eggs and gravy over, I mean, it's like a place of honor that I love. I love that spot. I love having, and it's usually they just have it wrapped up in the kitchen for me because I've missed breakfast. So I love it, but at the same time, I find myself every time that food is prepared for me, I find myself having a thought. I don't want to be a person that loves the place of honor and being in the seat of the synagogue. I don't want to be what Jesus is talking about here. And so, that's why I have, mixed emotions when they've saved me breakfast. But they've just saved me breakfast, not because I'm special, but because I'm working and I'm missing breakfast. But you understand, I have this kind of little feeling. Okay, here's the point of of our talk today. Here's what I really want us to get. Do not be called rabbi, for one is your teacher and you are all brothers. Why would Jesus say, don't be called, don't be a rabbi? Well, don't be a teacher. Don't be considered the teacher. Why would Jesus say that? Because it's vital. It's vital that we don't look to somebody as our mentor. There's a guy that I love, and he's brilliant, and he's a great teacher, and he teaches theology in such a way that's just, it's deeper than I typically go, and I absolutely love him. And he looks for people to mentor. He wants people to see him as their mentor. And it's not a bad thing, and it's not a weird, unhealthy thing, but I stiff arm it and I say, no, I don't want to do that, because I don't want to ever say I'm following this person or I'm following that person. I want to constantly be listening to this person and listening to that person and hearing from somebody at church and hearing from somebody else and listening and learning from everybody, but following Jesus. Jesus is my teacher. God the Father is my teacher. The Spirit of God is my teacher, not some human being. And I would encourage you to be careful not to call somebody on earth your mentor or your teacher or your father. Well, we'll get into the next part. The next thing says, do not call anyone on earth your father, for one is your father. He who is in heaven. So your teacher is in heaven. Your father is in heaven. And anytime you start calling a priest or a rabbi, teacher, or father, you are usurping, you're taking away the spot of leadership from God in your life, and you're letting it be. And here I have stumbled into the word leadership, and that's the next thing Jesus says is, you do not be called leaders, for one is your leader, that is Christ. Notice it says, do not be called. Look here, it said, do not be called, do not call anyone, and then do not be called. So here Jesus is talking to both the person being called leader, teacher, father, and the person calling somebody else leader, teacher, father. And he's saying, don't call somebody else your leader, teacher, father, and don't be called leader, teacher, father. I started thinking about what this word pastor means, and why do we use the word pastor? And I started asking people, what do you want from a pastor? And they started listing things and listing things and listing things and listing things. And I drew like 50 different words, or wrote 50 different words about what people wanted from a pastor, and I put them all on a whiteboard. And then I took 3 colors of markers, dry erase markers. I circled everything in red that sounded like a father, and I circled everything in green that sounded like a leader, and I circled everything in blue that sounded like a teacher. And I went, so basically, red, blue, green, what you're asking for a pastor to be is you're looking for a pastor who could be your leader, your teacher, your father. And they said, yes, that's exactly it. It kind of sums it all up. Leader, teacher, father. That's what we need in a pastor. And I said, let's turn to Matthew chapter 23. And you say, Josh, why would you do that? Why are you tearing down this thing that's been the way we've done church for so long? Because Jesus said, don't do it. Don't call anyone on earth your teacher, your rabbi. Don't call anyone on earth your father. And don't call anyone on earth your leader. And you say, so now who leads us? Who fathers us? Who pastors us? Who does this? Well, how about Jesus? How about the Spirit of God? How about we trust that God speaks to us in our heart, and he can speak to you and to me. But the greatest among you shall be your servant. You want people, I'm trying to think how to say this. You want to help people. You want to help people follow Jesus. You want to help people be led in the right direction. You want to help people be taught in the right way. Serve them. Whoever exalts himself shall be humbled, and whoever humbles himself shall be exalted. So I work really hard to say to people, don't call me pastor, don't call me leader, don't call me teacher, don't call me father. Why? Because that's what Jesus said. It's dangerous for them. It's dangerous for me. And when I say dangerous, every time I say dangerous, it doesn't mean it puts them in danger of hellfire. That's not what I mean. I mean, it's just not the best path for their life. And so the best path for your life is to constantly be looking to Jesus as your leader, your teacher, your father, and constantly be encouraging others to follow Jesus, not you. That's it. Matthew 23, 1 through 12.